Memories of Hulk Hogan in AWA.
Well, you know what? When Hulk first came in, he was real quiet, big, big guy, and I'll never forget. I'll tell you a little story. He came in, and John Sullivan was his manager, and he was doing all these little card tricks and stuff like this, and he says, you're going to see a real ace in this business. So they brought Hulk in to be a heel, and he beat two guys, and the people fell in love with him. And all of a sudden, that killed Vern's ego, because here you got a big, muscle-bound, blonde-haired guy, that looked like a surfer, that was a bass player, guitar player. All of a sudden, he became the biggest wrestling event in the AWA, and Vern couldn't take it.
Even though it was good for business?
No, it hurt his ego.
Right.
Yeah. So, and I'll tell you, Hulk was living in a hotel in Bloomington, and it was during the winter, and I said, Hulk, I said, why don't you come over and you can have dinner at my house? And he said, okay. So he had this old Lincoln car, and it was cold as heck. Gosh, it was about 10 below. And he pulled in, and I had, I made some porterhouse and some shrimp. And my son was really young then. He was like 4 years old. So, and my son never saw a guy as big as Hulk with the blonde hair and everything. So Hulk went downstairs, and I brought some cheese and crackers, and I said, I'll be upstairs, cooking. So, and I gave him a beer or whatever it was. So I'm cooking, and then I come back downstairs, and my son, little Jimmy, had kept filling Hulk's mouth full of these little square pieces of cheese. And Hulk says, tell your son I don't want any more cheese. But Hulk was a good guy, and a lot changed. The old adage is, I think, money does change people.
Right. I'll ask you about Hogan as
okay.
far as WWE, WWF run and how they changed coming up. Bobby Heenan was there as well, you had mentioned, and Mean Gene Okerlund.
Yep.
Memories of Mean Gene as an announcer?
Yes, he was a great guy. We had a lot of party times with him, and he was a natural too, and he had his little sayings, and when he was groomed, he had an ad agency in Minneapolis, and he was doing pretty well, and this, interviewing deal was sort of like a part-time deal, and all of a sudden it took off, and, when he left the AWA, it hurt,
right?
Because he was a big star,
right,
and he was great. I mean, I think I used to tell him, I'd say, Gina, I said, if you had hair, I said, you'd be on network TV, and he used to get pissed off at me.
That was one of my questions, actually, is memories when Hogan and Okerlund and Heenan all left around the same period. That's when Vince started expanding.
Yep.
How bad did that hurt the company?
It hurt it.
Right.
Very bad. And Vern, it's funny, and I'll tell you a story relating to me. At this time, I had my own gym. In '82, I started my own gym, and Hulk came in at '82. In '82 and '83, really just popped that territory, and then went to Vince, and then it sort of shut down. So when people started going to New York, all of a sudden, the house started getting down, and then all of a sudden Vince's TV got broader and broader and broader. And I told, and this is the reason why I left, in '85, I asked Vern, I said, I got to have a guaranteed contract. I says, I'll stay here as long as you want, and be Greg's partner, but I said, I've got to make more money. I said, I've got my family, and I've got my gym. And he got all pissed off at me that I opened this gym. And he said, well, what do you want? And I said, I want a $95,000 guarantee. And he looked at me right in the face, and he said, you're not worth it. So 2 days later, I left.
Did you already have a deal with WWE?
Well, I had called,
right.
and George Scott says, come on in.
I'm going to ask you about that. I got
okay.
Hulk Hogan, going back to the Hulkster, a lot of guys we've done interviews said when he got to the WWE or WWF back then that his personality changed. He got the big push, and he was pretty much all for himself. Did you see the big change in Hogan?
I did, and part of it goes with the territory. I mean, he was the golden goose. They did everything for him. I mean, he was treated, like a champion. He was making $10 million a year. He was in a different, rarefied air compared to the rest of us. And as Hulk Hogan went, the WWF at that time went. You know, Vince couldn't have done it without him, and he was just incredible. And the only thing that concerns me about Terry is that I think he should have quit. You know, I mean, how much is enough?
Right, exactly. Kind of tarnishing your legacy.
Yeah.
Randy Savage, you got to work a little bit with Randy in WWF.
Yes.
Memories of your matches with Randy?
Matter of fact, that's when, towards the end, Vince had me there and Brian had left, and I hated to do it. I was doing jobs on TV, but I needed the money, and so he'd work me in with, I worked with Ted DiBiase, and then I worked with Randy one match, and I can't remember what it was, but I still have it. And we had a hell of a match. He gave me a lot of the match, and he comes off the ropes, and I hit him with the drop kick, and I bloodied his mouth real bad. And I thought, oh, Christ, he's going to come up swinging, you know. Right. But we had a hell of a match, and afterwards, when he and I walked through the, curtain, Vince was there, and he says, that's one of the best TV matches I've ever had. Thank you. And it made me feel good.
Right.
And I thanked Randy, too, because Randy didn't have to do that, you know. He could have, damn near guzzled me if he wanted to, and, what could I do? We're on TV.
What was he like outside the ring?
Randy was from the old school, and he was very protective of himself, and he sort of, I felt that he never got close to anybody. And, his dad was a wrestler, and I think that, and he was very good to me, and he was so easy to work with. And he had such a great opportunity here because, when he was down south, he was a good worker, but he never made any money.
Right.
He saved money, but he never made any money. Here he came, and he became a millionaire. And he just kept on going and going and going. And he was very, very concerned about his position and to keep it the way it was, not to rock the boat, save as much money as possible, don't make any waves, and that's what he did. And Elizabeth was with him, and I remember him and Elizabeth and Randy, they'd all share in the same room, because they were so frugal.
Right.
And they'd all, split a pizza. And he was never very open, but a couple times I brought my young kids to the matches, and I think he missed that, not having kids. And I felt bad for him, towards the end, because I did see him. We went to a Springsteen show in Tampa, and we were all backstage, and Randy was there, and he was sort of out of it, and he was with a group of people, and I never seen him that way, And this was in 2000, 2001. Maybe it was 2003.
I think that's when he was with George, maybe.
Yeah.
The blonde.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
So then I hadn't seen him, and I heard he, tried to be a rapper, and then I heard he was sort of a loner over in Florida, and Bobby Heenan said he'd seen him once in a while. And then when I found out he got killed, I just, oh, God. That's a shame. And that guy never got anything he didn't pay cash for. He bought a Mercedes, a Cadillac, condo, everything he paid cash for it.
Right,
he never took out a loan.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
More AWA questions, and we'll go right to WWE.
Okay.
Memories of young Kurt Hennig. Were you there when Kurt came into the
Yes.
territory?
Yeah, Kurt was a good kid.
You saw his potential right away?
Oh, incredible potential. And he got on the weights and, just had a knack. He was a natural. And I knew, he was there for a little bit, and I think he went to Oregon.
Right,
and yeah. And, his dad and I are still close to this day. I knew he was going to be, exceptional.
Any memories early on of his ribs, or did he not start ribbing people until he had some time behind him?
I think he
was really green when he first.
Yeah, and I think he sort of, bit his time a little bit.
Right.
But then when he went out to Oregon and then got on the road a little bit and see how these characters reacted with one another, I think it gave him an opportunity to start doing his own thing. Yeah, he was quite a ripper. And little did I know, if somebody would have asked me, I spent over 25 years of my life being a pro wrestler, I would have said, no way.
Huh. Well, that's a hell of a camp, too, with all those names, too.
It was. Every one of us it did pretty well. Bob Bruggers and Ric Flair is still doing it, but Bob Bruggers was a great athlete at the University of Minnesota and wound up in a plane crash down in North Carolina. Actually broke his back, and from that point on he had to quit. So